Yo, what's up, everyone? Today, we're gonna talk about pinball. Please don't close the video. It won't be that boring, I promise. Alright, so today, what I want to talk about is a game that has like 6 different titles, and I'm exaggerating a bit. I'm going to call it Devil's Crush, but it looks like it's also called Devil Crash, not Devil's Crash, along with Dragon's Fury for the Genesis port in America and maybe Europe, I think, and then Devil Crash Mega Drive in Japan. So, we're going to call it Devil's Crush just because that's what I've known it as for as long as I've known about it. So, Devil's Crush is a pinball game that's for, and here we're going to have to go through this again, but whether or not you want to call this the TurboGrafx 16 or the PC Engine, I don't care which way you want to call it, but I'm going to call it probably the PC Engine just because I have a PC Engine. That's what I'm used to calling it, but it is the TurboGrafx 16. So we're going to talk about Devil's Crush. See, this is already getting ridiculous. We're going to talk about Devil's Crush for the PC Engine or TurboGrafx 16. All right, so I know on the surface, if you haven't played this, you're probably like, dude, why are you trying to tell me to play a pinball game? Like, especially a pinball game from 1990. Like, first of all, it's not that old. Don't make me feel old. And second of all, I know. Like, you could just go to an arcade and play a real pinball machine. Trust me, I understand that. But first of all, this won't waste your quarters. So there's step one. That's pretty cool. But second of all, this game has a really cool aesthetic. It has really good music. I love the PC Engine personally, so it's always cool to find weird PC Engine games and stuff that I didn't know about when I was younger and stuff. And on top of it, I wouldn't really say this plays like real pinball, and you'll see in the footage because there's like moving obstacles and crazy things happening and stuff. And again, really cool imagery. And like they definitely took this to a point where it's not just here's pinball game, but here's like what you can do with a video game version of pinball, doing stuff that you obviously couldn't do with like a real pinball table. Do you call those tables? So here's the thing. I'm not like some sort of pinball fanatic. I've barely played real pinball machines. I mean, like, I have every now and then occasionally, like, I may have played one at round one once, but I'm mostly there for fighting games, so I really haven't touched pinball machines. So, my point, I'm not coming at this from some like raving pinball fan that's telling you this is the best pinball game to ever exist and here's all the intricate reasons why. This is probably how people that don't play fighting games feel when I talk about fighting games, where it's like, what are you talking about? I can't tell the difference between anything. I think this just maybe looks cool and I'm going to press some buttons. So that to me is how I view pinball. I want to press some buttons and see cool stuff happen. I want the little ball to go ping ping and all that cool stuff and make noises and whatever, you know, like dangle keys in front of my face and make some noise. Like, that's all I'm here for, really. Just give me some dopamine. So, let's start. Let's roll it back a little bit before I talk a little more about pinball. So, this is probably going to explain why this game is actually so good, but this was developed by Compile, which had their hand in making, like, their early Puyo Puyo games. So, obviously, there's some pedigree there. They obviously know how to make good short loop kind of gameplay stuff happening that has good instant feedback, and I think that type of company and those type of programmers and stuff are probably the perfect type of people to make a pinball game. So Devil's Crush is technically a sequel to Alien Crush. I don't think it's Aliens Crush, I think it's Alien Crush, and Alien Crush isn't super hard to access nowadays. You can get one of those TurboGrafx 16 minis, or you can also, I think, order the Japanese versions, the PC Engine minis. I think both of them have Aliens Crush on them. Alien Crush? I'm sorry, I don't know. But, so, Alien Crush is definitely the foundation of Devil's Crush. I know, like, huge shocker there. Like, the video game sequel built upon the predecessor. Wow. But I don't think Alien Crush is nearly as polished as Devil's Crush, and now that could be me not being good at pinball and thinking, oh, this seems less tight, less focused and stuff like that. And I, as much as I love, like, Alien and Aliens, the whole, like, xenomorph aesthetic isn't as cool to me as like the weird occult imagery in Devil's Crush. Now, like, to some people, I think they'll probably enjoy the whole xenomorph aesthetic more. Like, I certainly love like the R-type aesthetic with weird alien creatures and stuff. But for the sake of these two games, comparing them side by side, I like what Devil's Crush is doing a lot more, just even aesthetically. But I also think gameplay-wise, it's tightened up a lot. Like, one thing to me with Crash, whatever, I think, like, the spot in between, like, the two bottom flippers, is that what you call those flippers? I think it's, like, too wide, and I find myself losing the ball more than I feel like I should, with it seeming like it's just dropping straight down the middle without really feeling like there's a chance for me to hit it. I don't know if I'm supposed to be using, like, the table shake mechanic more, but I also know, like, obviously, in these games, you get penalized if you use it too much, so I don't know if maybe I'm supposed to be relying on it more or not. But point being, I spent way more time with Devil's Crush instead of Alien Crush, so I definitely prefer this way more, but that's kind of where the foundation came in. But, like, I vastly prefer Devil's Crush, and I think a lot of people do too. I kind of don't understand why this wasn't the game that was on the TurboGrafx 16 Mini or the PC Engine Mini, when it's just like superior Alien Crush in pretty much every way, in my opinion. Maybe there's some licensing issue, maybe there's more nostalgia attached to Alien Crush in Japan for PC Engine users or something. I couldn't really tell you, but what I can tell you is a bit about the gameplay. So, it's pinball. Yeah, cool. So, it's kind of like just some normal pinball stuff. You can shake the table, you got control of both your flippers and stuff, but it's got a multi-tiered system, and it's actually just like kind of smoothly scrolls between the whole thing. If I'm recollecting correctly, whoa, that's a tongue twister. Oh boy. Alien Crush is more like screen to screen to screen, and with no smooth transitions, while Devil's Crush is just smoothly going between like the three general screens you're going to be playing on, which obviously for like a playability factor when you're playing pinball, that's a huge difference. And so I am a big fan of spooky stuff and urban legends and occult imagery and all this kind of stuff, which is the same reason I'll never stop singing the praises of like Persona 1 and SMT stuff, because it fits very well into my niche of loving occult imagery, which, I mean, nowadays I don't know how niche that is, but yeah, so it's very much fitting into that imagery of like occult stuff and demons, and I mean, look at the name of it, it's literally called Devil's Crush, whatever. So yeah, I really like the aesthetic of it. There's some creepy looking things and stuff going on, like really, really cool designs. It almost makes me think of like, I have no real knowledge of like D&D or anything, but to me it's kind of giving me a vibe of like if some like high schoolers in the 90s were trying to make like an edgy D&D campaign, and here's their monsters or something. Like that's kind of the vibe I'm getting. So it's like cheesy, but I really appreciate that approach that it's kind of going for. I don't know if it was trying to be a little more cool or trying to lean into the cheesiness. I couldn't tell you. I could just tell you how it comes across nowadays, and that's kind of the vibe I'm getting for it. I'll show you some of like the cover arts that I found, because I was trying to find the release of the Genesis version, but I couldn't find a release date for it. I don't know why. At least in the quick searching I was trying to do, the TurboGrafx PC Engine, whatever, release was 1990. So I'm assuming it probably wasn't long after that, but I don't know. Maybe it was a whole nother year or something. But both the American TurboGrafx 16 box art and the Japanese Mega Drive box art, they are both incredibly beautiful. I'll show them on screen. One of these needs to be like, I need to get like a poster of specifically like the Japanese Genesis I think they call it Mega Drive there. Mega Drive, the Japanese Mega Drive version. I need like a whole poster of that. It is, I don't know what's going on there. I love old video game box art. So, some of it's so wild, and it has like next to nothing to do with the game. I mean, I can tell what they were doing with this box art, but it's, you know, it's still a stretch. It's still a stretch. It's not quite matching what's really going on during the game. So, you got 3 tiers, you got weird little monsters and stuff, and what I like about it, and I, you know, this probably isn't revolutionary, but I like the fact that all the obstacles and stuff are moving, and then you can like spawn more of them, and when you hit certain things they like transform and then they start acting differently. Some of like the bonus round stuff that you can get into, if you hit like certain spots, they'll have like these dragon things that are like breathing fire and they're like shooting at you and you're trying to like hit the ball everywhere and stuff. Those bonus rounds, there's like hardly any footage of it, because not only am I not getting into them very often, I also immediately fall and get out of them immediately. But they're there, so those bonus rounds are cool. They got whole different backgrounds and like enemies and stuff like that. It is weird to think about pinball with enemies, but that is kind of like what this is. So yeah, a bunch of things that are moving and stuff. You got obviously different, each tier of the screen has its own flippers and stuff, and you just control all of them all at once. Obviously, the PC Engine's turbo buttons aren't going to be doing you any favors here. I had it stuck on because the last thing I was probably playing was R-Type or something, and you will not be able to shoot the ball if your one button is trying to turbo that stuff. It's not going to be happening. So, yeah, and I think there's supposed to be, after you get, I don't know if it's a certain score, or if you hit all the bonus rooms or something, I think there's like a final boss, but I have no footage of that. I'm just going by what I'm reading online, because I am not good at pinball. But maybe there's some sort of final boss, and maybe I can pretend, for the sake of the video, that it would be cooler for you to go find it yourself, rather than me spoiling it. But really, all this is that I am not good at pinball, so you are not going to see the final boss, because I want to show you my own footage. So, there's apparently a final boss. You can tilt, but you get like penalized for it. I tend to just not do it, because I don't think there's not really scenarios where I know how to apply it, so I tend to just not really tilt while I'm playing this game, but maybe I should be taking more advantage of it. I really should just sit down one day and just grind this game out, which would kind of, in one sense, probably be kind of maddening, but at the same time, at some point, I'd like to get kind of crazy with this game. Maybe I'll stream it at some point or something. I think that'd be pretty fun. But back on track here. The next thing I kind of want to talk about is the music. So here's where things are going to get split a little bit. So obviously there's the PC Engine version, and then there's the Mega Drive version. The PC Engine version soundtrack is really good. I really like the sound font used and stuff. I think it's incredible, honestly. Like, some of this music I would genuinely like to try to like tab out, figure out, and like make a cover of it. I think that, like, I really do like the music of this that much. And I will say, for like Alien Crash, I do think that music is really good too. And that game was cool because you could like choose between two different songs. You know, I think that's a cool option. For Devil's Crush, one song, but it's a great song. And I think, generally speaking, the music in the Genesis version is roughly the same musically, and I'm talking about like note choices and composition and stuff, but the sound font is not nearly as flattering for the music, and that's just kind of a Genesis thing. It's just kind of how the sound chip is, and I don't think, it's not like all Genesis music doesn't sound good, and I know this is probably too much of an extreme example, but if you look at like Castlevania Bloodlines, like, genuinely that music is so incredible, and even just through its own sound font, I think it sounds really good. But that's a little bit more of an extreme. I would say, like, I still think like some Sonic music sounds okay. I just generally don't really like the sound font, but I think it's some of its artistic decisions, and when you're trying to already recreate music that already existed on a different platform, so going back to talking about Devil's Crush, I think they did the best they could have as far as trying to recreate that sound design for the Genesis version, but it does not come across nearly as good to me. And like, on paper and everything, you think that the slightly newer console, well, maybe not even slightly, like that's a decent bit newer, would just sound better and look better and be better, but I kind of don't think it is. So now I want to talk a little bit about like the visual comparisons if we're talking about PC Engine and Genesis. So the PC Engine takes up your full like 4x3 display or whatever, and it's 240p. You know, that's just a whole. That was how it was for a while until we got to like some Sega Saturn games are 480i, some PS1 games, I think, are higher than 240p. I think Tekken 3 is a higher resolution than 240p. But obviously, Super Nintendo, Genesis, TurboGrafx, all that was still 240p. So there's no resolution differences, really. Like, yes, like, internal resolutions, output resolutions are different. Some aspect ratios are slightly different. But as a general rule of thumb, you can slap the 240p label on this. But, the Genesis version has a different layout screen-wise. And I don't know if this has something to do with having more space from how it is internally being rendered and then outputting its 240p image. I'm not sure. But they put a lot of the score stuff and other junk on the side of the screen, and then the rest of the game is kind of squished in and to the left, and it does look squished in to me. It doesn't look like it's the same aspect ratio as the PC Engine version, and overall, I really don't like the look of that nearly as much. It's just the full image of the PC Engine version on your display. I think it kind of cheapens the feel of it a bit, and I don't like how little of a focus the gameplay feels like it has in comparison. It's just like, it feels like an unnecessary addition, because I don't think the PC Engine version has any readability issues. It's like, you know what your score is, you know how many like lives you have left. There's never a problem where I'm like, man, I wish I had more info on the side or anything. So I think, probably because it came out later, still don't know when it came out, they were probably like, oh, we could clean it up, we could adjust the graphics and stuff, because some of the graphics are like more detailed for sure, because the Genesis is more powerful than base PC Engine, because this wasn't like a PC Engine CD game or CD 2.0 game or anything, which I think had even better hardware, the 2.0 CD stuff. So it doesn't have like the same hardware access as something like Rondo of Blood, which definitely goes toe-to-toe with Super Nintendo and Genesis games. So they probably were able to like clean it up more, but the Genesis version was ported by a different company, Technosoft. So I don't know if it was maybe them making like creative decisions when they were porting it, but so some of it, especially like the bonus stages, when you lose the bonus stage and they display like a cool background or whatever before you go back to the main game, like, it's definitely higher fidelity, more detailed and stuff in the Genesis version. But overall, I think all of it hurts the overall look of the game. Some of the more detailed sprite work and stuff kind of detracts from the like occulty vibe it's going for, and almost starts looking more like fantasy-ish, and I think it's a little conflicting with the overall presentation and the theme the game is trying to go for. Granted, the one thing I could say, maybe if I played the Genesis version first, I would think the other way around, going back to the PC Engine version, because, you know, the PC Engine version is less detailed and stuff, but I do think it's more cohesive, even if it's like less detailed, and it still looks great. Like, in my opinion, I know if people aren't used to playing older video games, especially older, like, you can barely classify the PC Engine as 16-bit as far as its just base hardware is. It kind of is, it kind of isn't, but graphically you're getting something somewhat similar to 16-bit systems. So maybe you're looking at this footage and being like, what are you talking about? This just all looks like garbage. But in my opinion, artistically speaking, I do think the PC Engine version is better. However, with all that being said, I know I'm sounding like overly critical of the Genesis version. The biggest thing is, it still plays really great. And if anything, it almost feels like, maybe not faster, but it does feel slightly more fluid, maybe. Maybe there's just more frames of animation, because, like, I think they're definitely just both, like, a 60 hertz container. I don't think either of them are different, like, frame rates internally, but maybe there's more frames of animation for, like, the pinball moving around and stuff. I can't tell. It does seem a little more fluid, but still, overall, I'd rather just play the PC Engine version. But, hey, if you could get, like, easy access to the Genesis version, I don't think you're, like, missing out or anything. I just prefer the PC Engine version. So, that being said, what I want you to do, what I want you to take away from this video, I can't give you some great lore recap on the story or anything like that. This is more of, I wouldn't want to call this a shallow video, but there's only so much knowledge and opinions I can get out about pinball. This is just a cool pinball game that I like, and I like talking about the PC Engine. I haven't really had a chance to on my channel yet, so I want to talk about the PC Engine. I love Devil's Crush. I think it's a really cool game, and what I want you to do is go play Devil's Crush. And you know what, like tell me your high scores and stuff that you're getting. You know, that would be kind of cool. Like, go play it. Maybe spend 30 minutes, an hour trying to get like a higher score. Tell me what you can get. Don't lie to me. I'll know if you're lying to me. I'm just fibbing. Alright, so with that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video. I really implore you to go play Devil's Crush. Maybe at least play Alien Crush if you can, if you have the TurboGrafx 16 Mini. I would say this game, I don't know which version, it might have been the Genesis version, had a virtual console release on the Wii, and the Wii U as well, I believe. But we all know what happened with that. But you'll figure it out. Go play some Devil's Crush. I hope you enjoyed the video, and that's all from me. Later.